Hi, folks. I'm Maud Mosley, and welcome to this one off special where I'm sitting down with Hana, a Toronto based artist and writer that you may know better as FrizzKid Art. Last week's Pillow Talk addressed how many large blogs across social media thrive off stealing other people's work. And when it comes to political work, advocacy, or activism, this has many consequences for both the creator and the cause. Hannah is someone who has unfortunately had a lot of experience with this, so I'm excited to continue the conversation with her. Hi, could you start us off by sharing some of your experience with this topic?
Wow. Where do I start? I have a lot of experience with this topic. My art has been stolen everywhere from like mommy Pinterest blogs to like a tattoo shop to a coloring app, like a coloring app that is sold on you can download it for free on the Apple App Store that's used by thousands, if not millions. Like it has just been stolen across the board. It shows up on lots of different blogs, lots of different Instagram accounts, uncredited. Sometimes, a follower will spot it and they'll say, hey, please credit this artist. And most of the time they're good about crediting after the fact, but you also don't get any follows or anything from an after the fact credit because it's already been consumed and reshared by sometimes millions of people. So it's weird seeing there is one piece in particular that got stolen more than others because it's a piece that went viral 4 years ago. And would you believe the same piece still getting stolen all these years later? And it's a little disheartening to know that your work has had the reach of literally millions of people, but a fraction of those people actually know that you're the person that made that piece. And I even get that reaction. Like I've been at in-person markets where people have seen the print of My Healing Is Not Linear piece and go, wait, did you make this? And I'm like, yeah, I'm the artist. And they're like, oh my God, I've seen this everywhere. And I didn't know that you were the artist. And while it's lovely to get to say yes it's me and to be acknowledged in that sense, it's also disheartening to know that it's been shared so many times and I haven't gotten any of that recognition that I know I deserve for making that piece.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really why I wanted to connect with you, because I feel like, not that long ago, I kind of got a fraction of what you've gone through with that Healing Is Not Linear piece. I had this pronouns flow chart that, I created, and I didn't think more of it than I think of any of my other posts. And then all of a sudden it was just going way beyond my means for about 2 weeks. And I had people that I hadn't talked to since middle school sending it to me from these other political blogs being like, hey, didn't you make this? And I was like, yeah. And it wasn't, they were eventually crediting other blogs even, so it wasn't even not giving me the credit. It was the fact that they were saying other people made it too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've been there. I often get people crediting where they shared the image from. They're like, oh, reposted from so and so. I'm like, you don't need to give them credit for reposting it. You need to give me credit for making it. And, every kind of feminist blog Instagram account or political blog Instagram account where it's just an amalgamation of art, photos, infographics made by other people, they're finding things. And yeah, it makes for a beautiful Instagram feed. You have all these different types of art from all these different great artists, but where's the recognition? And, at the end of the day, when it is shared so heavily and you're not credited, it does translate into a loss of income. Obviously, you don't make money, or at least I don't make money from posting things on Instagram, unless it's a sponsored post, which would be stated. But, it's not like I'm an influencer where every post is monetized. So I'm not literally making money from the post, but when I am sufficiently credited, I do get sometimes offers for commissions. So it does start to amount to a loss of income because I know that if these really popular blogs had credited me, then the organizations or people that follow those blogs maybe would have reached out to me and say, hey, we really like your work. We want to buy like a stack of your prints. We want to commission something custom. Because that is how I've gotten a large chunk of my business, is through Instagram. People say, hey, we saw your art, or we saw that you did art for this center and we like it too. So we want our own custom art. And people often say to me, kind of like what you were saying, that like you didn't really expect it to go that far. You expect it to go as far as any of your other posts. Well, when I first made the Healing is Not Linear piece, which is, I have other pieces that get stolen, but that's definitely the main one. People are like, oh, well, why didn't you sign it or watermark it? And it's like, because I only had a handful of followers at the time and they were my friends. I didn't expect for it to become an overnight sensation. No one thinks that they're going to go viral. I had been making art for years, posting art online for years, and it had never been noticed. I mean, I didn't go to art school. I went to school for journalism. I'm a self-taught artist. Even when I made the Healing is Not Linear piece, I barely knew like all of the functions of Adobe Illustrator at the time. I was really, really like in the beginning of learning how to make digital art. So I didn't think to sign it because I didn't think it would go anywhere, just like my other work had never gone anywhere. And then all of a sudden, you know, it's everywhere. I mean, I've had my work reposted by celebrities before, which is crazy. I had one piece, it's like of two men, and it says, educate your bros, we can all dismantle misogyny. I might be paraphrasing, I don't remember the exact caption. I have like over 200 affirmation pieces, so I don't remember all of them.
Understandable.
But it was reposted by Winston Duke, which is really cool. Winston Duke is from Us and Black Panther. He plays like M'Baku in Black Panther. And that was amazing, but it wasn't credited. Eventually, a bunch of people were like, hey, like, please credit, because like you're this actor with a huge following. And he did get back to me, and he said, like, he was like, oh, I'm sorry, like, here's the he changed the caption and he credited me, which was amazing. And it was also really cool to get to talk to a famous person. But at that point, it had already reached a lot of people, so I feel like the credit was kind of a little too late, because, you know, millions had already consumed it and shared it. But some people, I mean, that was a case where he at least took accountability. And I have had people be like, I'm so sorry, let me credit you. But I've had cases where people are like, where people have fought with me, have been like, oh, well, you didn't put your name on it, and I just found it online, so it's like free dibs. And I'm like, that's not how it works. Like, I can't believe you're arguing with me on this. Like, you like my art, but you don't respect me as a person? That's nuts.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And so many people don't realize that like when people go to repost things, they can also like change the cropping of it. So
Mhm.
many times, even if you do put your name on it, which I've gotten like very much in the habit of doing as like a security measure. But even then, like so many people will repost things and like crop that part out, or they'll keep it in, but they won't like tag you in the post or tag you in the caption. And then that's still decreasing the amount of credit you're going to get for it, because few people are going to like
Yes.
look at that part of the photo and then separately look it up. Like the point is, if you're going to repost something, you have to make it as easy as possible to like, for somebody finding it to like find the original person.
Yes, absolutely. And my signature has been cropped out before, or photoshopped out in some cases. And like, I think that when you credit someone, it should be the first thing in the caption, because people also don't read long captions. So people will write this whole post, like they'll post a Healing is Not Linear one, for example, and they'll write this whole post of like my healing journey, blah, 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 blah. It's a whole paragraph. And then at the bottom, it's like the emoji is like the camera icon, and it's like camera : Chris Kid Art. And it's like, no one's going to read that. No one's going to see that. Put it at the top.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've kind of touched on money and work stuff a bit, but I'm going to ask about that more now. So I just want to ask, like, how has having your work stolen, like mentally, physically, or monetarily, like impacted you and or what you advocate for?
I think sometimes I've kind of loosely done the math in my head of like where I could be if everyone credited me, and it's very upsetting to think about. I'm like, wow, I could probably have a lot more money than I actually do right now. Like this coloring app that stole from me, I tweeted at them and I did all the stuff and they never responded. And they're a huge app, and like I know they have money and I should be paid compensation for what happened. And on top of that too, sometimes when my work is stolen, they alter the message a bit. And that's really upsetting because I have that message there for a reason and I don't want it altered, or, you know, or changed to meet someone else's political biases. Like, no, it's not for your like very Christian mom blog. It's not for your anti-vax Instagram. It's not for those things. Like, the work is attached to me. You like, I know people say, oh, separate the art from the artist. No, I am part of the art. So you take the art, you also take me. If you don't agree with me, then don't take the art. Like, if you find me problematic for whatever reasons, then don't consume the art, right? Like, that for me, like, I don't follow, there's a really popular artist, you know those like alien comics?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I found out that he was really anti-choice. So I stopped following him. I realized that his work doesn't touch on that topic, but I just don't like to follow people who I don't align with that way. And people might think that's stubborn, but that's a commitment that I make to be pro-choice and to support my friends and loved ones who have gotten abortions. So like, I very much like, you have to take me with it. So it is, yeah, like, yeah, I know that it's loss of income. I know that I'm not being compensated when people steal from me. Like, an apology is one thing, but money is another. And I don't expect money from like an individual. Like, I've had like really small blogs, like someone's random blog post me, and like, I'm not going to make some like 16-year-old with a blog like pay me, because that's an uneven power dynamic and I'm not trying to take from people who have less than me. But when big places are like taking from you, like, pay up. Like, MTV did a Snapchat story once, back when I actually had Snapchat, where they were posting memes about breakups or posts about breakups, I don't know. And they shared Healing is Not Linear, but they shared it from some random girl's account. And I thought, oh my God, like, MTV has seen my work and I have no recognition and no compensation from that. Can you imagine, like, I lawyered up or something. I had the money to lawyer up and I got them to pay me. And then there's also really unfair laws around suing people for taking your intellectual property because they go, well, you didn't copyright it. But copywriting things also cost money. It costs money to copyright if I copyrighted every single one of my Instagram posts, I would have no money. Like, I would be dead broke.
Yeah.
So people also, sometimes they will kind of try to posture to you of like, well, actually, this is your fault because like you didn't take the necessary measures to protect your work online. And not to do like a reach here, but it's low-key a form of victim blaming. Like, you stole from me, but I'm responsible because I didn't pay however much money to, like, you know, protect it online. Because, you know, copyright and protecting work online is like, you are basically protecting it based on capitalist standards of what work deserves to be protected. But I believe in just the moral standards. Even if you have no legal backing behind your work, I know that it's yours. Let's say you make something, you have no lawyers, you have no money, you have no copyright, you have no watermark. Morally, logically, it's still your work. And I'm going to respect that from a moral standpoint, that I should not steal another person's work, even if it doesn't meet the capitalist standards of like work that deserves protecting, right? Because, you know, if you like pirate a movie or something, everyone agrees that that's illegal. But if you steal like a local artist's work, suddenly, oh, that's not a problem, even though fundamentally like art theft is the same thing, right?
Yeah.
But it's really unfair because it's like you pirate a movie that has probably like no effect on the studio because they still, like, let's say you pirate a Disney movie. Disney's not going to go bankrupt. The actors are not going to go bankrupt. They're going to be fine. They're not losing anything. But you steal from a local artist, then it is actually affecting them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's so definitely true. And like, I just really appreciate how hearing how like self-assured you are in
Mhm.
your work, and your work having value, and you know your work deserving credit and money. Because I feel like that's one of the things that, especially when this first happens to a lot of people, and I know this is a feeling I had, where it kind of leads to this like burnout feeling of like, well, then why am I doing this? Why am I creating? Because, you know, if it's like people are constantly going to steal it, other people are going to take credit for it, you kind of start being like, okay, well, then why do I keep posting it here?
Yeah.
Why don't I just stop? Like I could be doing something else. So it's really nice. And I feel like that may have been like a process for you, you know, to like get to how self assured you are now.
Mhm.
Or it could have been natural to you. But I just really appreciate hearing it, because I know that's not where everyone is. And I hope that's where everyone can get to, because I think everyone deserves to know that the work they're putting out there absolutely has value, whether people are assuring them of that or not.
Oh, absolutely. And, I say to people who are, if you're, a local artist, or you have like, let's say you have like 3 followers and your work gets stolen, your work is still valued. Like, I feel like when someone who is really famous has their stuff stolen, we value it more than if someone is like not known at all. But all work, all creative work has inherent value. You made it. You deserve to get the recognition for it. You deserve to get the dollars for it because you're trying to live too. Um, and it definitely was a process. I mean, it was hard for me to deal with in the beginning, but also like I'm lucky because I do have a lot of followers now, and if I tell my followers, hey, like these people stole from me, like they will comment and try to hold those people accountable. It doesn't always work because it could be like huge accounts that are stealing and they can just ignore me. But I have had people like really have my back, and that's an amazing feeling. I think everyone deserves a support system around them of people who say your creative work has immense value. And at the end of the day, like there are people who are going to credit and share it and praise you and pay you. Those people exist. So for example, the singer Kalani posted my artwork once, like years ago, and she credited me right away. And that was really awesome. So like it is possible, like there are people who are gonna like rep you and try to use their platform to get you paid. The other example I have is like years ago, I reached out to Biff Naked and I was like, hey, I love you, you're awesome, and I want to send you my book. And she replied to me, and I mailed her my book, and like we started talking online, and she posts my, like when I make art, like she posts my Patreon link all the time with it and tells her followers like, hey, like pay for his kid. And that means the world to me, that first of all, a creative person that I admire, that I have grown up admiring, because like, 90s kid here, and I was always obsessed with Biff Naked, especially after like her work was on, her music was on Buffy, and I was like, oh my god, I was obsessed with Buffy. It's a very special feeling to know that there are these people who just want to see the best for you. Even like my childhood best friend, I've known her since the 3rd grade. She just posted my book today on her Instagram and wrote this really heartfelt caption and review on the book, and that's amazing. Like, yeah, she's not a famous person with like hundreds of thousands of followers, but she like went out of my way to take like a beautiful photo of my book and write a caption and put the link for people to buy it. And like when you have those supports, it does help you get through the stolen stuff. It does. And to have people be angry on your behalf, because I get angry when my friends are ripped off, and they get angry when I'm ripped off. And everyone deserves to have that like squad that really stands up for you and cares that about your work.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's really nice because also all your answers are kind of like transitioning into the next question that I'm going to ask,
Oh, great.
which I think is so great, because that means we have a really nice flow going. And I love that.
Good.
So kind of to what you were just talking to, on last week's Pillow Talk, I personally like suggested some ways to combat, what's going on and when people have their work stolen. And some of the things I suggested was like commenting, if somebody has their work stolen, commenting, asking for them to like demand credit, always sharing posts from the source. So I know like sharing posts to your story is like really positive when it comes to the algorithm. So like making sure that you're not sharing it from the big blog, like taking that big blog, finding the original poster and sharing it from them. But I know in the grand scheme of things, these can all feel like really small actions because we can generally feel like very, very powerless against social media if you are not running a page that is like supported by the algorithm. So if you are doing advocacy, if you are doing activism, especially if you're talking about things like racism or police brutality, I mentioned how often those are shadow banned. But what do you think can or should be done about this, either on an individual level or on a collective level?
For me, like getting comments and shares is really important because sometimes people are like, oh, your work must always get a lot of likes because you have a lot of followers. Nope, that is not the case. I have over 42,000 followers and I have posts that only have like 100 to 300 likes, which is very small considering I have 42,000 followers. I've had a huge follower count for a long time. I only have like one post that actually broke like the 10,000 like mark. One post. So yeah. And I think it does have to do with my content because obviously I am very political and the algorithm does not favor that. And, I'm very like, fuck cops and fuck capitalism, which is not something that, the algorithm likes. But I think the best thing to do is like commenting is better than liking. And commenting like more than just like an emoji, like try to comment like a whole sentence or something like that because it is something that the algorithm favors, sharing from the source, which is what you mentioned. The other good thing to do is share links of how a person can get paid. So like if you like their post, maybe like share that, let people know that they have a Patreon or a coffee account or something like that so that people know that there are ways to financially support them if you're able to financially support the person. Even like little things too, like I've had like seen artists call outs and people comment my name going like, First Kid Art would be great for this project. Like they're really awesome. Check out their work. So doing little things like that. But I also think that we can't underestimate how important word of mouth, like offline promotion is. So, for me, having people say, hey, I mentioned your work and your art today at a work meeting because like we're looking for some whatever artwork. This usually comes from like my friends and stuff who work with trauma centers, like women's shelters, things like that, because I do get commissioned by those organizations a lot because my work touches on that a lot. And them saying like, hey, I've actually like mentioned your work in this meeting and like you might get an email today like offering you a certain amount, or like people telling me sort of like under the table like, hey, like make sure you ask for like over this amount of money because like I know our budget and I know that we can pay this amount. So don't, like I've had people like, I'm not going to like disclose where this was, but like I did a workshop once and I was going to charge $150 for it. And the person was like, they were like, okay, we didn't have this conversation, but you need to charge more. Because they're like, we have this money and like, this is the institution's money. This isn't coming out of people's pockets. This is a very well-paid institution. You should charge more, like significantly more. And so it's like, okay, what if I charged $350? Would they pay me? And they were like, yes, they'll pay you $350. And I know for some people $350 is like nothing, but for me is like, that's a lot of money. Yeah. So like, yeah, like for people to also do things like that in their day-to-day life, because obviously social media is not everything. I think that we perceive it as everything. We perceive having high follower counts to be everything. We perceive social media success as everything. But word of mouth is always an awesome thing. Heck, like one time they were like, hey, I took a stack of your books off of the shelf that they had placed it on Indigo and I put it at the front of the store because I love you so much. And I was like, that is amazing.
That is so
like
sweet.
My friend was like, literally, I tilted it so that everyone can see it because it was stuck between these other books. And I want people to pick up your book. like that stuff matters. It really, really matters, and it really helps, you know?
Yeah, it really does. And especially like when online can be so like mentally and emotionally tolling, like hearing more about the stuff going on in the like in the real world, like online's the real world too, but the physical world.
Go
Um,
analog. Go
yeah,
analog with your activism sometimes. Like
yeah,
I appreciate, I like online because I know not all of my friends necessarily have that accessibility to do things offline, or maybe they're not working a place where they can like say my name, or they're not like, you know people's personal situations. But when I do have friends who are in those situations, that their word of mouth could go a long way, and they're actually using that and doing it, like that's awesome. I mean, like even with like what we were discussing just personally before about a mutual friend of ours and how I like recommended them for a job because they were unemployed. Like, yeah, now they're getting paid, which is great.
yeah. No, it's amazing. And it's so true. Like all these small actions that we can be doing on a day-to-day basis, like really do make a difference for
They
like
do.
everyone in so many different situations.
Mhm.
But yeah, so you mentioned one of your books. I don't know which one that story was from, but your new book, Small, Broke, and Kind of Dirty, is out now. And I haven't gotten my hands on a copy yet, but the excerpts that I've read from it online have been fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
So I do hope I get to read it one day. And I just wanted to bring it up because, you know, what we've talked about is having all these, you know, opportunities taken away from you, this like income miss, you know, the fact that your work has value and deserves credit. So I did just want to give this space for you to just kind of
Thank
like talk
you.
about your book so that people know that this is a way that they can support you and read something cool. So
Yeah.
yeah, do you want to
Um,
tell a bit about it?
yeah. I didn't, when I started writing this book, obviously COVID was not a thing. And I didn't know that it was going to be coming out during a pandemic. And at first it was extremely upsetting when I had to launch it during the pandemic, because I didn't get to do my first book, It Begins in the Body, which is a book of poetry. It came out 2 years ago, and I got to, do the launch party, and I got to like travel to literary festivals. And um, even though it was small scale stuff, I still felt like a big shot because I had never experienced those types of things before. Like even just getting to like take the train to Ottawa and do a reading at like a pub there, I felt very special. And I was very upset that I didn't get to do that this time, that I had to always do Zoom readings, and Zoom fatigue is real. But I I think that it was also meant to come out now, because it is a collection of essays that go along with some of my most popular affirmation pieces, including many of the ones that have been stolen. So now they're like in the book, and now it's like I have hard proof, and the ones in the book, right? That's copyrighted like evidence, right? Because it's a book, so it's copyrighted. Um, so it's essays that they're fun, they're anecdotal, they're silly, they're embarrassing, but ultimately they're very hopeful. It's all about hope, and it's not hope in that cheesy like good vibes way. It calls out toxic positivity, and it calls out the apathy and apolitical nature of like wellness and positivity rhetoric that we see online. And the book is explicitly political. There is a whole chapter about politics, about how we have to care about things. We have to care that the planet is dying. We have to care about climate change. We have to care about reproductive rights. We have to care that fascism is on the rise. Fascism is not just this thing that happens in these faraway countries of the global south, but it's happening here in Canada, in America, in the UK, wherever you're located, that kind of pretends that it's somehow better than like third world countries. Like no, like fascism, violence, racism, poverty, it's happening here too, and it's something that we have to talk about. And so the books address these things. The book addresses these things, but it in a way that's not heavy or overwhelming or academic. It's not an academic text. Everything is written in layman's terms. Everything is written in simple, anecdotal, accessible language, because I wanted to write it how I speak, and I'm not a very academic person. I have one lowly bachelor's degree, which I think used to be big shit a long time ago, but it's not big shit anymore because, you know, now it's like, oh, bachelor's degree, oh, whatever. You like can't even get a job from it. So, yeah, it's about everything from friendship to mobilizing on the streets to loving the skin you're in, everything in between. It talks a lot about body positivity, but body positivity as a political movement, right? It's not just about, oh, I feel beautiful. It's about, hey, like there needs to be justice for fat bodies, for gender non-conforming bodies, for trans bodies, for racialized bodies, you know? So the book covers a lot of things, but it's not in a way that is going to make you feel heavy. It's very light, because I also very much went into this book wanting to talk about my personal experiences, but in a way that wasn't going to be perceived as trauma porn. I didn't want to make that. I'm not comfortable talking about a lot of my traumas. I'm not at that place yet. I really wanted to talk about my joy, and I wanted to talk about some of the wholesome memories I have, because I think there is power in talking about those things. So, for example, the first essay of the book is about how I went on a school field trip to Ontario Place in the 5th grade, and we went to the water park, and I lost my underpants. I lost my underpants. I don't know how it happened. I was in the 5th grade, and my best friend was like, hey, I have an extra pair of underwear. Do you want it? And I was like, yes. That's friendship. And it will thrill you to know that she's still my friend to this day, 17 years later. Real wholesome shit. Real good wholesome shit. That's what we need right now. We need like that, oh my God, like that's good stuff. We need heartwarming stuff now more than ever. So as much as I was sad to not have that like book tour experience, I think it was meant to come out now. But there has been struggles in it coming out now, which is that I think that there's like less advertising on it. You know, it's media outlets are not as focused on arts and culture and book reviews, right? Because there's so much else going on. So it is really important that people like promote local indie books, because people are like, oh, well, books are doing really well now because like everyone's indoors and reading. And it's like, well, yeah, if you're published by like a big publisher and your book is at the front shelf at Indigo, but what about the indie published books? Like, we're not necessarily getting those same benefits. So it is really important that it's like, if I tell people, if you like my book, please like go on Goodreads, go on the Indigo website, go wherever and leave a review. It's really, really important that you do that, because those sites are also determined by algorithms, and there needs to be reviews there for people to actually want to consider reading it now more than ever. So that's my little plug of like, hey, go review my book if you liked it. Or if you have problems with it, you can say that too, right? Like, just say what you gotta say.
Yeah, definitely. And I will be linking your book down below, so hopefully people can find it and check it out there. As you mentioned, you also mentioned your Patreon. I'll link that down below as well. So folks, if you've appreciated the affirmation art, if you've appreciated this conversation, maybe you could go check either of those things out. But yeah, thank you.
Patreon starts at $1, so
there you go.
Peer pressure, $1 a month. I'm cool with that.
Cheaper than a coffee.
Yeah, exactly. It adds up. I can take that dollar to Timmy's, buy myself a Timbit.
Absolutely. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much for having this conversation. I really appreciated this, and I hope people have a lot of takeaways from it.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Thank you so much. I was really happy to talk about this, which is why I rambled a lot. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay. Bye.
Bye.